officially call to order the Committee on Physics and Two-Year Colleges meeting. I'm Tom Herring. I'm the outgoing chair of the committee. That's one of our things to talk about. But this is officially the winter meeting 22 committee meeting, even though it's not 2022 yet. In these virtual meetings, we're still doing most of the committee meetings a few weeks in advance of the meeting itself.
Can I ask a question while we're talking about that?
Yeah.
Oh, you.
Since if we have, well, eventually we're going to go back to in-person AAPT meetings, hopefully soon. But could we move these committee meetings back to the actual meeting events? Just because it's chaotic when you have work and family and you're trying to get to all these. In fact, this is the only committee meeting I'm going to just because it's just so difficult to try and get to committee meetings.
I feel the same way. That's been my suggestion as well. There are others that I've heard from others that this is somehow better, but I haven't experienced that. So I will forward your opinion along with mine.
Thank you.
Leadership. I don't know what the plan is. I'm not sure.
I don't mean to
anybody really
cause
does.
strife, just hoping, it is a little easier for some people, maybe. I don't know if there's an intermediate solution, but, or
The intermediate solution might be both, like a in-person meeting at the in-person meeting, and then have a follow-up to finish business that wasn't finished,
Yeah.
or have a vote on something or whatever.
That may be what something like what we land on. I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is a Google form for attendance. So if you'll go and fill it out at some point in the intervening few minutes, so that we can, I have a much clearer record of who is here and not. Let me know if it's broken. I tested it, it worked for me.
Yeah, it works. I'm seeing it.
Okay.
I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, it should just be the quick sort of, name, email.
Yeah.
There is a new email list, thanks to Kareem and Glenda and Joe, and I won't take any credit there because I didn't do anything.
Well, we got the list from you. I mean, if it wasn't you, I didn't have the list until you sent it to us.
Yeah, I did manage to get the old list, the old email list that was deactivated at AAPT. So we're populating that as best we can. Again, mostly others than me. Kareem has really championed that. Thanks for that effort.
Well, the issue we're having is that Google won't let us add everyone all at once. So we had to do it in increments of like 50, 60 names every day. So I did it twice, and then Glenda was trying to do it, and she had a problem yesterday. So today I didn't get to it, but I'm going to finish it. Another couple of days, I think we should have the whole list signed up on Google Groups. So I don't know why I'm doing this. I thought it was going to be like 2 minutes. You copy paste, didn't work.
Yeah. And hypothetically, the settings are such that anybody, if you get into Google Groups, you should be able to find it and join. It looks like to me. I'm going to put another link in here. That is the agenda in case anybody wants to look at it separately from my screen share. But I'll share my screen so that you can maybe see what I've got going on or attempting to go on. And try and keep an eye on the chat as we look at this. So there's a link to the sign-on form there. There's the actual Zoom meeting link. You can see the new listserv TYC physics at googlegroups.com. I haven't had any trouble with it being spam filtered or anything, but of course I'm using Gmail, so that stands to reason. You might want to, if you're not using Gmail, check your spam filter just in case. Things are getting filtered out.
There were a few error messages that I got from some of the addresses. I'm not sure why. It says some people were not able to be on the groups. I'm not sure what the reason. I didn't really spend any time on this because I was busy trying to get the list up and ready, but we'll look into it later and see what the problem is.
Some of the addresses have changed because people moved
Yeah.
to other institutions and their old
Yeah.
institutional addresses were wiped out and things were bouncing. And
Right.
I think that's what a lot of that is due to.
Yeah, I looked yesterday for all of 5 minutes, and it looks like for those of us that are managers of the group, it was, if you look at the membership list, it flags emails that are bouncing. So we should keep an eye on that. And, make sure. So some AAPT updates. The summer meeting is in person. I was in a meeting yesterday with Beth, among others, and she said in person. She insists. So looks that is the current plan, pending more information. That the summer meeting 2022 will be July 9th through 13th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And then of course Toby already mentioned the Portland meeting for winter meeting 23, and the plan is Boston for 2024 summer meeting, it looks like. So and of course our virtual meeting coming up here, that should say 2022. I still can't figure out what year it is. It's been that kind of year even, but the meeting starts 6th, the January 6th goes through the 8th. You should, if you have not registered, I think the early bird registration ended yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So you have to pay the late bird registration price, I guess. After this meeting, I rotate off of the as the chair. Unfortunately, we don't know who's taking over yet. Sherry, who was the vice chair, had to step down for personal reasons. And we have yet to get an official replacement. Toby volunteered and was shot down by the nominating committee because he apparently works way too hard.
Right.
How you doing?
That, but not being given a responsible position makes me sometimes think that
Yeah, but
I'll give up, because, well, enough said.
Yeah, but so far as I know, there is no official successor. I will stick around to the best of my ability and try to keep things running until somebody is in place. But we need a chair and I think a vice chair still. If you're willing, send your name to me and or directly to the nominating committee through AAPT. But hopefully we can get that. I think that's probably our biggest question for the next few weeks, is to try and figure out who's going to be in charge.
Tom, I'm on the committee, but I think I'm the last person in. I'm sure there are people before me.
This is, I don't think there's any, it's more of a willingness to do the job. And I'm certain that myself and other past chairs will be willing to help. Glenda, of course, the chair before me, has been instrumental in many initiatives, although she is not the chair during this year. But yeah, we're here to help. It's really it's not really a requirement to be super experienced with things. It's much more of a, I think it's much more of a willingness to participate. And there are some good learning opportunities. If you want to know more about how AAPT runs, you can pick up a lot about that.
was thinking the biggest issue is maybe the commitment to attend the meetings from the institute, your home institution, having guaranteed, travel funds for, was it 4 out of next?
Yeah, 4
meetings?
out of the next 6
so-
meetings is the expectation.
that's-
that is an issue.
Yeah, these days it's kind of hard to get that commitment from.
It's
the
not a
institution.
greater commitment for the chair than a regular committee member. I thought the chair was expected to be at all the committee meetings.
Not that it ever told me. I have been, but you know.
It's
Well,
been a long time since I was chair, so.
Well, wait, actually, no, because you're chair for a year, right?
Yeah,
So there are what, 2 meetings?
I've
during
been
that time?
chair for virtual stuff.
I see, okay. Because I remember I did two rounds of chairing, and I attended all the meetings, but yeah, in a given year, you only have 2 meetings to attend. So it's being a member. You're right, John. That's when you're on the committee, because you're on the committee for what, 3 years, I think.
Yeah,
I forgot all
they're
the
on the
details.
committee. It's
Thomas, just out of curiosity, ask them if I'm permanently banned from a chairmanship because I work too hard.
I think it was that you were currently an official member of another committee. Was what they told me.
Oh,
'Cause aren't you on like space science or something like that?
I'm on 3 committees now,
oh. So we don't allow dual membership.
but I don't mind.
Yeah, that
It's
was
not that
that
big a
was the
deal.
reason I was given, is that because you were already a member of another committee, that you should not be the chair of committee.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Or
Well,
vice chair.
yeah, I
That's what
remember
they
that.
told me.
I remember that. But that's kind of crazy that you can't do something that you're willing to do because you work on other things,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if that's an official policy, you're gonna have a problem finding a chair because a lot of our folks are on multiple committees.
yeah.
Mm.
All I can tell you is what I heard back from the nominating committee when I turned in
Right.
Toby's.
Right.
name,
Maybe I should get
so,
myself on the nominating committee and nominate myself.
There you go.
They want people on the nominating committee right now.
Oh, okay. So you have 4 committees and one.
Also, Tom, I think in a situation like this, because the VP in the middle of it left, can't you serve another year again? I think you can.
I have not seen any official rules written down for this.
Are you willing?
So,
Yes.
good question. Well, it would be a
Or
bad
able?
idea for me. I'm already scheduled to teach
Oh,
stupid overload in the spring.
okay. Yeah.
I will stay. I will stick it out as long as is necessary to find a replacement. But I should be done as soon as I can be done. Simply for local, really for local concerns. There's a lot going on at my institution. So
Do we need to get it done? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to quickly ask, do we need to get it done by January 8th or so, or by the end of the virtual meeting in January?
well,
Is there
that
a-
would be an official start time, but whenever we can get somebody, Faruzan, if you're willing, I will put your name forward and see if they'll let that go. I don't see why not.
I think there is in the winter meeting, there is session that you get trained in possibly. So
Oh.
Yeah, there's some meetings, the programs meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm happy to do it. Sure, if because in fact, this time of my life, kids are old enough that I can go to meetings. I have a 20-year-old and a
That helps.
15-year-old. They can take care of themselves. So
Yeah, well, I'll put your name
Everything.
forward and hopefully that will go better
Yeah.
than Toby's. But yeah, I'll put
Well-
your name forward and so we'll
That'd be a great choice.
yeah, I think so too.
thank you. Well,
I feel like that would be a
everybody's
great
help.
choice.
So, stepping in with asking for help.
Oh yeah, you'll get the help. Don't worry. I mean, I don't think it's. anybody who's asked for help and nobody answered. It would be enough people who've been on the committee or chairing a committee or whatever. So
Yeah, I think really the biggest hurdle is and I think it's still a hurdle even in the AAPT office, is learning the open water system that they're using to organize meetings. But
It would be good to get someone named so that they could go to the programs meeting with you I mean,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's virtual, but at least that they get an idea of how it works before they're the chair.
yeah, and really anybody can come to the programs. If we get you the link, they'll let you in. So, but I'll put your name forward, and hopefully that will go relatively quickly. No guarantees there, but anyway, with that, there's always the things to do, like suggestions for plenary speakers for upcoming meetings. They're always the APT is always looking for that. But let's move on to some TYC more related updates and discussions. I don't remember exactly who's on. Anybody want to talk more about the status of the NSF grant proposal for the TYC training? Who's
Could say a few words about that, since I've been closely involved with that. Thanks to the really hard work of Chris Louie, the proposal is just about ready to be submitted. For those of you who are not familiar with the details, this is a $3 million proposal to NSF to set up a organization for physics at two-year colleges. And the acronym is OPTICS, appropriately enough. And many of you have been involved in drafting material for that proposal and generating ideas. This has really been a community effort. We've got an outstanding team of folks involved with that. Chris will be the PI, Glenda, Nicola, and Dwayne Desbian and I will be co-PIs, and there's a group of about 8 others who are going to be coordinators for various activities. We've got external evaluators, we have an advisory board, dozens of workshop and other professional development activities will be part of the proposal. So if this is funded, and I think the chances are fairly good for it, this will really be a wonderful shot in the arm for professional activities within the two-year college physics community.
Bob, what was the response from the TYC, I mean, from the AAPT board? Did it go for a review at the board? I haven't heard back.
Yes, it went through the full AAPT review process, which includes Beth Cunningham signing off as executive officer, then our review board makes its recommendation, and it finally goes to the board of directors, and everybody was really enthusiastic about the proposal.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good.
The board did officially endorse it at their November 6th meeting.
Okay, it's good to hear.
Any idea on the timeline when at least PIs will know about?
It's hard to tell. This is being submitted under a rather peculiar arrangement with NSF. They have a program enhancing undergraduate science education, TYCs, part of an IU's effort, but has no formal submission deadline. Send it in whatever you want. We've been talked to a couple of program officers. They said they'll get it into the review queue as quickly as they can. And typically it's, in practical terms, 6, 7, 8 months or longer before you hear back from NSF. So if we get this thing in within the next couple of weeks, we can anticipate hearing something perhaps over the summer.
All right, sounds good. I didn't come up with any other big news items. to talk about. Anybody have news, comments?
You had asked for plenary speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just threw two names into the chat room, Catherine Hayhoe and Hope Jaron. They're both authors, they're both good speakers, they're both climate change people. They're both relatively well-known. And so there's a chance that they would say, talk to my agent, and write me a check for 5 figures.
Mhm.
But I'm always surprised and impressed with the number of people that'll say, oh yeah, I'll come and speak to, high school physics teachers. I'll do it for free. Right. So I just thought I'd throw those two names in there.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll pass those along. You can always send those to me, and I think there's now a form somewhere on the APT website. I'd have to dig around to find it, but always on the lookout for those ideas, I'm sure.
I think they would both be good speakers along with having a good topic, right?
I have a bit of news from, I'm trying to organize 12 teams to do the Eddington experiment in 2024. And I went down to Mexico, and in the high deserts of 8,000-foot area, I ran across a gated community of millionaires. And I went in there and I found this compound that this millionaire owns that can house up to 100 people or so. And it has a swimming pool and a hot tub and a bar and so on. And he's going to feed us and house us. And so if you're interested in trying to do the Eddington experiment in 2024, I'm going to be doing talks at all the meetings, but this could be quite a deal.
What do we need to do? I'll volunteer. I'm in a week in Mexico in a resort.
What you need to do is contact me or come to the session on the Friday session I have on the Modern Eddington experiment, where I'll be explaining how to do it and where we're going and how we're going to get this done and how you can contribute and so on.
Okay. Are you getting funded for that? Is there a particular?
I'm waiting for a funding from NASA to come. I have 2 stations already. I'm waiting for funding for 4 more. The grant is supposed to start on January 1, and I haven't heard yet. So I gave him a little nudge saying, I'm anxious to hear because the grant's supposed to start on January 1. So by the January 8th or 7th, I guess it is, I'll know probably whether I have the grant or not to fund 4 more stations. But you can buy your own station for 20 grand.
Perhaps you can find another millionaire to help out with that second grant.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, he's helping out a lot. He's going to feed us and house us for 5 days and 4 nights for $400 each, including beer.
Oh, that settles
Oh,
it.
wow.
Okay.
That's going to push you over budget with the beer.
Right. He doesn't know the crowd there.
It's the absolute best place to see the eclipse. It's at center line. It's at the point of maximum eclipse. It's at 8,000 feet with 0 chance of clouds.
Okay.
It's perfect.
Yeah, Toby, I've had some preliminary discussions with the Nevada Space Grant Director here just via email, and they're optimistic that I can potentially get some funds, but their funding, their round of funding for this doesn't start until spring. So, but I'm gonna I should be putting in a proposal to fund my own station. I've got some of the details from you, but I'll pick up more in the session.
I don't want to hound this meeting. We got lots to do, but I mean, this is exciting.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty good trip, and every state has a space grant, and this kind of cooperation across states looks good for NASA. Anyway, I just copied the link to the winter meeting schedule. I'll put it in the chat so it's easier for everybody to get to. If I can. There's the link to the 2022 winter meeting schedule as it stands right now. And the plan, as is noted on the website, these aren't pre-recorded as at previous virtual meetings. These are live presentations, despite the virtual mode of this meeting. So a little bit of a change from what we've seen over the past couple of virtual meetings. I'm not sure exactly how that's being coordinated, but I'm sure there are people working very hard on it as we speak. Anybody else want to highlight anything from this upcoming meeting besides Toby, things that we should attend? Well, I guess we can move on to some other notes then. Summer 2022, again, that should be in person in Grand Rapids. These are the sessions / workshops that have been submitted by this committee for that meeting. Last I checked, they were all on the final approval list, so they should be going forward. If you're one of the coordinators for this and you have not heard from AAPT, you might want to send them a message.
I did send them a message, and Serena said that the website for putting speakers in is down, and it will, once they get it back up, she'll contact. So
Okay.
you can't
So
do it right now.
maybe put a pause on that. Sounds like they're working on it. But I looked in Open Water earlier today. These are the things that are listed for, as far as I know, for TYC. Let me know if there's anything missing that you think is supposed to be up there. Things that
So
we're either
Tom-
sponsors or co-sponsors of.
Tom, last summer I proposed a session or a workshop and a session. Let's see, the session was effective practices for developing scientific reasoning and thinking in, I don't remember the exact title, but there was a session and there was a workshop for online and in-person labs that develop scientific reasoning thinking skills.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that one.
Did both of them get nixed?
As far as I know, this is the list I had of things that are
Okay.
going to. It might be that if they went through, if they were if we were co-sponsors and they were going through another committee, that they're
No.
still in the works somewhere, but I haven't seen them.
TYC was going to be the, I think we were looking for a co-sponsor, just, to spread the wealth around, but the TYC committee was primary.
Yeah, they apparently they got shot down somewhere. I'm not sure. I'll try and track down where, but I don't know. Yeah, there may still be time to get those in. I'm not sure where the totals stand for the summer meeting. Hopefully I'll find out more in programs 1 during this meeting, so I'll make myself a note to look for those. I'm old fashioned. I stick notes in my pocket. That's the only way I remember. And I think, what's that piece of paper in my pocket?
Remember that royalty check that I found just a little while ago? That's what happened with it.
Yeah.
Was that after you pull it out of the washing machine or before?
Me?
Oh, no,
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. You know how you find
I actually, it's been surprisingly effective, more effective than trying to get my phone to remind me. I'm much more likely to ignore electronics, apparently. Go figure. I'll try and track down what happened with this, though. into my pocket. We should start planning for winter 2023 in Portland. I put together a Google form. Here's the link in the, I'll put it in the chat as well, so it's easy to find. Yet another Google form to submit ideas. We can jot some things down here as well. No harm in that. I will gather ideas wherever they come from,
Well,
as has been done in the past.
I have two ideas for sessions. I've talked to two other committees already about co-sponsoring or joining with these ideas. The first idea stems from is called can online labs effectively serve undergraduate courses post-COVID? And I talked to the PER committee, and they liked the idea of this. I'm starting to use these McGraw-Hill labs produced by Wolfgang Bauer, and they're quite good. And he is doing PER research right now at Michigan State, comparing these online lab outcomes to MSU in-person lab outcomes. So I think by Portland, there may be some other people that have peer-reviewed studies on the outcomes of online labs, and Wolfgang said he would be in a contributed invited session. He would be willing to do an invited talk on his peer work, comparing his labs, and then I thought maybe getting Vernier, Pocket Lab, or Pasco, or somebody that would be kind of the technical equipment type of the component to online labs. So anyway, that's the idea, and I think it's a relevant idea because this has been debated a long time, but now that we've done a couple of years of remote lab work, there might be some data out there based on peer PER research that shows yay or nay. So that's the first session. And the second session is called Should Angular Displacement Be a Vector Quantity? And this is some work that Leonid and I here at Portland Community College have done. I strongly feel that it's a definite error in mathematics in our introductory textbooks to say that theta is a scalar quantity, but yet the time derivative of theta is a vector quantity. In other words, well, I could go on about that, but that is a fundamental error in mathematics, and mathematicians totally agree. And yeah.
When you gave that paper, I believe it was in San Diego.
Yeah.
You lit a fire under me, and I have done some rather extensive research, some of which I have right here next to me, actually, on that very thing. And I think we should probably talk.
Yeah, well, you would be, I think Wolfgang Bauer and Eric Mazur both support that paper, and they would be, Wolfgang says he would do an invited talk, but you could do an invited talk. I'm not trying to push anything on anybody. The answer could be yes or no, but you know.
I think it's one of those topics that could spur a lot of interest both ways, because the textbook presentations do vary. And if you think angular displacement is mysterious, angular velocity is even more mysterious because it's not a derivative in its full three-dimensional form. So I just throw that out on the table there. Notice the smirk on my face too.
Right, right.
Well, would between the two of you, do you want to try and organize this?
The problem is I'm retiring at the end of this month, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to attend any particular meeting. So I would be happy to perhaps help with organizing, but I can't guarantee that I could attend the meeting at this point.
Yeah, well, I'll organize it. I mean, it's not that big of a deal really, because I think there's I have people who are willing to do a invited talk, and I think there'll be, as a contributed speakers, there'll be a whole bunch of people that'll say yay or nay, you know. So the idea is to get people to talking about this, because I think most everyone agrees that the time derivative of a scalar cannot possibly be a vector.
I think that what would be a question, considering talking to, well, with experience with math teachers, would be whether you included time displacement as around all three axes or just in one plane. And I think a lot of students and a lot of math books show angle as just in one plane, yet angular velocity is shown as all three axes, where something can actually turn around all three axes from start to finish. So
Yeah.
And you just articulated something that is at the heart of this. Most textbooks project everything onto a plane, and in that sense, you can talk about these things in a vectorial sense. But in 3 dimensions, that goes out the window. And I'll say again, angular velocity is not the derivative of any time-dependent function. Angular velocity is a vector cross product. It is a geometric quantity. And angular velocity can't be integrated in 3 dimensions to give an angular orientation. That requires a tensorial quantity. So this has the benefit of provoking a lot of discussion.
Yeah, so
You've
it sounds
got
like
me
would
about
make
it.
a good session. I think that's the point to be made here.
Yeah,
And
good.
Toby, if you have potential co-sponsors, hit them up.
Yeah, I did PER, because I said that, you know, the purpose of PER is to investigate things that students have difficulty. How many of your students have difficulty with the fact that omega comes out of the perpendicular and nothing moves in that direction, or that torque is Newton meter and work is a Newton meter? You know, those are some serious difficulties that students have related to this general
Well, torque ought to
question.
be a meter Newton, but you know.
yeah.
And don't forget, there's a radian sitting there grinning at us the whole time also.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
there's a lot to unpack there. I think it sounds like it would be a good session. I'm just trying to capture as many ideas for sessions and or workshops as I can during this meeting. But again, if you have others, there's this link here. It's in the chat as well. That will take you to a Google form. I'll probably send it out to the email list as well, and make sure we get as many ideas as possible going into the winter meeting.
If Toby could post his a link to his paper in the chat, some people were asking about that.
I don't have I can email it to anybody, but it's not up on the web at anywhere. So just I'll put my email here, and just email me, and after this meeting, I'll send you a copy.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
My email, I'll put my email in chat right now if I can. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I have a copy of that paper from the San Diego meeting somewhere.
I might mention, oddly enough, that we submitted it to AJP, and I'm going to be talking to Beth about this, because it was automatically denied because, quote, the policy of AAPT is to not publish anything that is contrary to the current understanding of physics. And I went, what?
What?
Are you kidding
Hmm.
me?
That's weird.
Yes, it sounds like Copernicus.
Are you talking about the AAPT or the Vatican?
Well, this is really
Those,
what
those are
this-
different.
Yeah, different, slightly different. But coming up with sessions and workshops is really the bulk of what I have left on the agenda.
Where is she going?
I'm going
I
to
have
capture
one.
this from the chat, Alexis.
I have one. I was looking at what I think Joe had said somewhere about the community college being pressed between the university and the high school. And I'd like to see something related to articulation. And what I'm grappling with right now, I've been involved in a lot of equity events and sessions on our campus, and with the certain population that we have, we're looking at best practices, etc. And I'm really looking down the line with articulation. So something in the lines of equity and articulations, or equity practices and articulation. What's going to happen to these students once they transfer to a four-year university? And I'm gathering some data, now. So by then, hopefully, I would have some things, but I would like to see what everybody else is doing, and what are the certain population of students who are affected right now in our campuses, who can benefit from little changes, and if what's happening with across the nation, and what's happening at four-year universities regarding that. So equity practices and articulation, something like that.
Okay.
The problem I've been having with our state government is they talk a lot about wanting to increase the level of equity, yet will never offer what you could call a measurable definition of equity in such a way that you can say, look at this, based on these things, this thing has increased in level of equity. I've looked at all sorts of papers, and it does not seem to be, outside of certain dictionaries which do define the term, don't seem to be any clear definitions. And any definitions that seem to be working definitions do not match any dictionaries. And it seems in some cases the definition changes from week to week depending on who's talking. And I'd like to know what AAPT defines equity to be, so that when I read something from AAPT that talks about equity, I know just what it is.
Ken, what I was referring to, for example, I would like to look at the success rates of my students. So I have access to that data. I can see in the past years how many students took my class, what percentage dropped. Of the students who stayed there, what percentage successfully completed the course with a C or better, and then are there particular trends in particular populations, and if I have changed something one semester versus the other, how has that affected basically the retention rate and the success rate? So that's how I'm defining it, and that's how I'm measuring it.
Because I've heard things with, you measure it, you want to see if it causes this, if it causes that. But then coming back to, okay, but before I make changes to increase it, what is it that I am increasing or trying to increase?
Exactly. So the first step is basically, having access to data on your students from past. I mean, I have been teaching for a long time. So at the current college, I have access. So I can look at what things I changed in the past year and how that has affected students. Has it affected a particular population of students? And, as we implement tools, equity tools, how is that, it benefits everyone, but how is that changing basically the success rates of some students?
I think the definition of, as far as I'm aware, AAPT doesn't have one. I know my institution doesn't have one, but it's really that you have to talk about equity in some particular sphere. Equity is more of is not a single thing, I think, is the trouble with it.
Well,
So-
It's
dictionaries
equity
define
in
it as
some
fairly
sphere
and
of
equally
influence, or equity in some
evaluated or
experience,
equally
or
performed.
something like that. I don't think you'll ever see a definition of what is meant by equity, because it's really always equity in something. That's my take.
Okay.
Well, I haven't even seen a general one in what I would call publications. They use the word, but they don't take the time to step back and say, when I'm using it in this publication, this is what I mean by it. And I'm not very good at picking up on reading between the lines. In fact, I'm not capable of it. So I have a lot of trouble with such articles because I really can't figure out what they're talking about, because I've got no definition to base it on. Some say it's based on, I've heard some people say, well, you just feel that it's there. And I really don't know what that is either.
Okay, so would
Be
that,
sure that the students that are marginalized do know about equity. I mean, it's hard to define sometimes for people, but if you're affected by it, you would definitely know. I've seen some graphics that try to show it, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably an unanswered question, but again, I think having sessions that discuss it in different realms, like as proposed, is probably the way to try and define it. But I don't think there's a good definition of things like that. I ran across an interesting experience in the astrobiology course that I taught this semester. There's a lot of efforts to define what is life, and it's probably a bad idea to do so, it turns out.
Yeah.
And maybe equity is one of those things that if you try and define it too specifically, you hinder efforts to champion it. And I think that's part of the trouble in trying to define many things.
Yeah, because if
You pin it down too much, then
it's what you need to accomplish what you want.
Mhm.
And then I come back to, well, suppose you have somebody who wants to get an A by doing absolutely no work at all. Is equity providing that student with enough?
That's not so
to
much
get
as
an A by
a
doing-
want as things which are denied, I think.
See, and that's
It's
where
very, but it is
becomes
nuanced,
blurry.
and it's yeah, it's nuanced and it's tricky. And those things, those are places where both language and mathematics often fail us.
would it be helpful if we define it a little bit more for this particular session? We call it equity practices and articulation. Yes, it's very hard to define equity totally. I'm glad we are having, I mean, it's good that it's bringing up a lot of discussion, because it's not defined, and hopefully we'll get to a place where it becomes more clear. The idea is to provide have some things in place that make things available for students. For example, if my paper is due on Tuesday and I give them a whole week to do it as opposed to an hour, then the student who, or as opposed to, let's say, the day before, the student who works, you know, all week and has less time can have a place to put these in and still perform and still do their work, but with some provisions given in terms of when the due date is, or being a bit more flexible, etc., things like that. So equity practices, I think, would
Yeah,
clarify.
that's a better word for it, much better word than just saying equity.
Yes.
Thank you for that addition.
Yeah, it's a good discussion, particularly in naming sessions. The direction from AAPT is that we want these things to be broadly, what was their exact wording there? I don't remember. To attract a broad audience. And so, again, we don't want to pin down things too much, but we've got to be clear about as clear as we can about what we mean.
Hey there.
I had one quick, Glenda, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, so you know, on our Slack group, this talk about equity reminds me of that little clip on our Slack group. I posted that little clip that went viral of that middle school student, middle school teacher, I think it was, or kindergarten teacher, showing that she was how she teaches equity to her students, right? That she was giving band-aids to the students when they had a cut, a bruise on the elbow. And then she asked, okay, did you hit your head? And they say, oh, I hit my head. So here is a Band-Aid for your elbow. But hold on, I hit my head. And the students are confused. And then how many of you scraped your knee? Oh, here's a Band-Aid for your elbow. So equity is not providing the same thing for everyone, because that's not going to be helpful. How equity is a set of practices that are providing help where the student needs, and the needs will be very different. So it's a set of you know, practices and procedures that are going to be very different every time. And if there's one thing I've learned through this process, now Chris is here too, also with the optics grant, that maybe something can be said about that grant. With the optics grant, is that there is such a technique when you don't know. So Kenneth, you were very worried, like how do you measure, for instance, whether or not I'm achieving equity in my school, or etc. And you know, people who will evaluate grants and whether we are achieving the many goals we want to achieve, and there's so many and they're so hard to measure, such as whether we're improving equity and things like that. They use this approach, I've never heard of that before, that helps, called harvesting approach, which is and I put a link there, which is basically a collection of, as far as I understood, again, I'm not an expert, but you know, you can go and read, but it's a collection of sometimes small stories, and you know, sometimes it's, you know, it's not the whole bunch of the group, but a small story of one or two students that you really effectively reached and were able to help, and that helps to build the story of success. So although it's hard to get the whole statistics, but having this collection, this harvest of a collection of these stories, that's how you're going to measure success and how you're going to publish it. That's it.
Okay, because with the term success, what I've seen, a thing that happens, it's starting to be realized. There was a time when a lot of people thought success meant the same thing for every person. And it's finally, some are starting to accept, not a lot, but some, that success for one person might be failure for another, yet it's the same thing. And when I talk to my students a lot because I've got small classes. Like I find out one student would consider a C excellent because the company that is having the person take the class only requires a C. And if the student gets a C in this physics class, the company is happy, the student is happy, so the student will not do any more work than is literally necessary to get a C. Yet another student considers success A because of the transfer that he's going to do. And I can do whatever I want to my class, and I will never get the student who is satisfied with a C to get an A. And this is where some of the articles I read don't fit, because a lot of the articles seem to assume that success is one thing for everybody in a class.
Chris just posted a great link. No, it's not the same, and the needs are different. So equity are different practices to help reach different needs. Yeah. And different objectives and etc.
And within one classroom, there's only a certain range of objectives you can shoot for and do it within one semester.
Yeah, certainly not an easy question. I think maybe there's I think there could be potentially multiple sessions in which to discuss these things, trying to steer us back towards session. Tony, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah, I did, but it was more in the same line of equity, because I'm involved in a committee, I would say, of a couple of people from different AAPT institutions and committees that are putting together something that is going to look at how we do community building, and mostly in terms of equity achievement. So how well are we doing in equity? And so I guess you've heard about sea change. If I may, I can put the link right here. Let me see if I have a link, but it's, there you go. So it's kind of related to what we're talking about in terms of equity, how even as a community, TYC community, how have we been inclusive to members of the two-year college profession who are diverse and all that? How have we practiced that? So those are some of the things we're looking at from different institutions, and actually also different groups like PICAP, Partnership for Integrating Computation in Undergraduate Physics, Alpha, all these societies that are affiliated to AAPT. So I'm just throwing that out here and saying, maybe I'll be asking you questions towards the end or something like that. But it seems like what we're talking about, even though it's for students, we're also asking the same questions as AAPT in terms of how can we serve our members better? How can we improve on community building that is more inclusive? That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think it's nice that AAPT is working on this, but it's good to have the discussion in our own group here as well, and let it generate more ideas.
And I guess Alexis can add more because we're in the same committee with her.
Yeah, I think Tony summed it up pretty nicely. What was I gonna say? It's been a very long week. I think some of the stuff you might want to think about as a committee is, because I'm a part of your Slack, even though I haven't taught at a two-year college in like over a decade, and that was only a year of my life. And I noticed, and I'm just curious, and you don't have to answer this now, but something to think about, maybe those are questions Tony might be asking y'all, is do you feel part of the AAPT community, like whatever that is, like part of other committees and other populations within AAPT? Do you feel like you have a say in what happens in AAPT? I don't know the answers to that, and I'm not expecting you all to tell me that like now, but I think those are important things to think about. And Tony's also representing the two-year college perspective and to interface with you all. So if you have other questions, he might have answers. Cool.
Or more questions.
It might be good for you all to think about too, is what I think it's good that everybody has their own communities. I also think that, oh, my video is off because I'm sorry, I was dealing with like grocery stuff. And then anyway, but yeah, it might be good for you to think about how your community functions. Are you a quote unquote community? What would make your community better? What are you doing well? And what kinds of practices might other entities in AAPT uptake, or what are things other communities, however we define it, are like excluding you all? Which they may or may not, I don't know. Those are just off the top of my head.
Well, I think that's something to those are all, this is a set of questions to keep coming back to.
Mhm.
That's where I'm trying to get to.
Well,
I'm with you, Alexis. It has been a long week, long semester really, but there is, as Chris mentioned in the chat, there's the optics grant. If that gets funded, there is a significant component of that tries to delve into diversity, equity, and inclusion in TYCs and how to how to promote that, how it's different at TYCs as compared to other places. That's really, I think that is sort of the crux of a lot of the need for such a grant, is that TYCs are very different than other places.
yeah, Chris is also organizing a session through Committee on Diversity for, I think, summer meeting on TYCs and DEI. I forget actually what you called it, but I entered it in the system.
I think it's diversity at TYCs. So we have Susan White, who's going to talk about the statistics, but the last major statistics or survey on TYCs and physics has been like a decade ago. So one of the things our grant's going to do is to fund another in-depth survey. But I think it's a starting point to see, we kind of have two big data points separated each by a decade, looking at faculty and programs and students at TYCs. And so hopefully we'll get funded and we'll have a third data point. But I'm hoping that some of you will have talks to contribute as well. I know Kareem was talking about some stuff, at PER stuff at some point. That might be a good venue. And David Marasco had mentioned he might contribute something as well, talking about hiring practices and how to support more diverse candidates. So anyways, just more of a little plug, and
Yeah, so yeah, I'd say keep an eye out for that at the summer meeting. I think we're effectively wrapping up here. We can I think we're scheduled to half past the hour, but we don't need to take all that time if we don't need it. Again, if you have session ideas, hit the Google form. I'll be sending that link out to the email list as well. We'll try and get session ideas and workshop ideas through there for me to take to the programs meetings. But feel free to hang around. I don't remember when programs 1 is. I'd have to look at the schedule.
I'm not even sure if it's scheduled actually.
Yeah. I don't know that is it not been scheduled? Yeah, really, where it's particularly important to have a lot of ideas is for this for the winter meeting 23 would be at programs 2, where things start to get hashed out for that a little bit more, which is usually later in the meeting. But I think last time it was actually after the end of the meeting proper, if I remember correctly. I don't know. But yeah, feel free to hang around and we can continue chatting for a bit.
Maybe I can ask my questions.
Yeah. I'll stop my screen share here so we can see each other a little bit better.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
I'll try and I'll capture those ideas.
If we stop recording, I can share some stuff off the record with you
Yeah,
guys.
let me. I will officially close the meeting and stop the recording.